I, a 44-year-old man, entered into marriage at a young age, and my daughter was born during that time. My former spouse and I believed we could make our marriage work, and we made sincere efforts to do so over several years. However, despite our attempts, we eventually decided to part ways when our daughter was 6 years old. Thankfully, there were no lingering resentments between us, but the aftermath of the divorce was quite challenging. I found myself in unfamiliar territory as a single parent. While my ex-husband offered some support, I had to shoulder most of the responsibilities. Adding to the complexity of the situation, I had to secure employment for the first time in my life. Prior to the divorce, we had agreed that I would be a stay-at-home parent, so this transition was a significant change for me. Financially, things were tough, and I struggled to make ends meet. My ex-husband contributed to our daughter's school expenses and other necessities, but I had to work multiple shifts to ensure that both my daughter and I were adequately cared for. The strain took a toll on me, leaving me sleep-deprived and constantly fatigued. In an effort to find some solace and relaxation, I started to occasionally have a drink at night. At first, it didn't seem like a big issue, but gradually, it turned into a crutch, and I began to rely on alcohol. One day, my ex-husband surprised me with the news that he was engaged to a girlfriend I had never even heard of. This revelation hit me hard, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of bitterness. It seemed like he was moving forward to start a new family and enjoy happiness, while I continued to grapple with the responsibilities of parenting and a demanding job. Our post-divorce relationship had been amicable until this point, but with the news of his engagement, tensions began to rise. I recognized that my bitterness was unfair, but I was unable to contain my frustration at his newfound happiness. This strained relationship between us had an impact on our daughter, and she found it difficult to witness my anger. I eventually realized that my feelings were negatively affecting my daughter. With some effort, I managed to convey to her that the situation was unrelated to her, and she should be happy for her dad. It took some convincing, but she agreed to attend his wedding. I was utterly devastated, but I knew that I had to prioritize my daughter's well-being above all else. I was determined not to involve her in any conflicts or make her choose sides. I eventually met my ex-husband's new wife after some time had passed since their wedding. I had reservations about allowing her into my daughter's life, unless she proved to be a kind and caring person. To my surprise, she was not only very nice, but almost too good to be true, and she also developed a strong bond with my daughter. She made a heartfelt promise to take good care of her whenever my ex-husband had custody. Initially, my daughter spent weekends at her dad's place, but as time went on, she began staying there more frequently, particularly after the remarriage. I'll admit, I felt a tinge of jealousy that my daughter wanted to spend so much time with her new stepmother. But if it made her happy, I was content. Gradually, she even started staying there on weekdays. With my demanding job and constant fatigue, I didn't object because I simply couldn't give her the attention she deserved. I felt a sense of guilt as our relationship seemed to drift apart. But I held on to the belief that I would always be her mother, and our bond would improve in due course. However, the increasing closeness between my daughter and her stepmother led to frequent arguments between us. My attempts to curb the excessive gifts her stepmother was showering on her, which made my daughter happy, were met with her anger. We began quarreling almost daily, even over the most trivial matters, and I despised the growing tension. The more my daughter grew attached to her stepmother, the more distant she became from me. I was terrified of losing her, and in my desperation, I resorted to drinking again. I knew it wasn't the best solution, but I was hurting, and it seemed like my only escape from the pain. My life was crumbling before my eyes, and my daughter preferred her stepmother to me. They appeared to be a contented family while my daughter was unhappy when she was with me. Then, one fateful day, my daughter asked me to relinquish my parental rights so her stepmother could adopt her, and I couldn't handle it. Our voices rose, and we argued intensely. I vehemently refused to give up my daughter, asserting that I was not going to relinquish her that easily. I tried to reassure her that I could become a better mother and make her happy, but she insisted she would cease all communication if I didn't sign away my rights. She proposed that if I complied with her request, we could still have a place in each other's lives. She expressed her inability to cope with my drinking and her desire for a stable and happy home, one that only her dad and stepmom could provide. My heart ached, but I comprehended her needs and reluctantly agreed to her request, with the condition that she would not vanish from my life. She made the promise, and that was the last I heard from her. Following the surrender of my parental rights, her stepmother legally adopted her. I made daily attempts to reach out to my daughter, but she remained unresponsive. My ex-husband kept me updated on her well-being, noting that she was content and excelling in school. He couldn't fathom why she wasn't communicating with me, and I, too, was at a loss as to why she had broken her promise. Losing my only family was a painful blow, and my drinking spiraled out of control. Eventually, I sought rehabilitation, and I successfully overcame my addiction. Although I had ceased drinking, the absence of my daughter left me profoundly unhappy. I called and texted her daily, even making visits to my ex-husband's home in hopes of seeing her. But she refused to come out and meet me. I had missed out on so many pivotal moments in her life, from her high school graduation to her college enrollment. I believed I had lost my daughter completely until one day when she appeared at my house and handed me a letter. She mentioned that she would consider talking to me if I could explain why I had written that letter 12 years ago. I read the letter repeatedly, attempting to understand its contents. Shockingly, it claimed that I was willing to relinquish my daughter in exchange for money, and it was addressed to her stepmother. I had never sought money from anyone, and I had never considered giving up my daughter. Furious, I went to my ex-husband's residence and confronted his wife for destroying our family and taking my daughter from me. She burst into tears, and my daughter took her side, insisting that I was being selfish by disrupting their lives after so many years. I vowed to expose her for who she was, and my daughter asked me to leave them alone, asserting that I was causing unwarranted turmoil in their lives after all this time. With a heavy heart, I retreated to my vehicle, defeated after 12 years of estrangement. I later shared everything with my ex-husband, who had no prior knowledge of the letter. He believed his wife was merely expressing jealousy and thought it would fade over time. It had never occurred to him that she would go to such extremes to cut me out of their lives. He also mentioned that his wife had requested him not to keep me updated about our daughter, but he chose to disregard her demands, as they had no children of their own, and his wife treated our daughter kindly. In my defense, I assured him that I had nothing to do with the letter, and that his wife had poisoned our daughter's perception of me successfully for the past 12 years. She assured me that she would arrange a meeting between me and my daughter. After a week of persistent persuasion, my daughter finally agreed to meet me. During that meeting, I shared everything with her, explaining the circumstances surrounding the letter and her stepmother's involvement. The letter was typed, so there was no handwriting to analyze. My daughter listened intently, tears in her eyes, struggling to accept that she had been manipulated as a pawn in her stepmother's scheme. I shared details about my job, my successful completion of rehab, and my newfound sobriety. In return, my daughter opened up about her college life and her boyfriend, expressing her deep sadness over letting her stepmother come between us. I reassured her that it wasn't her fault, and finally she began to believe the truth. She was determined to confront her stepmother. We parted on good terms, with her promising to visit me once she had sorted things out with her stepmother. 2 weeks later, my daughter returned to me, having severed all ties with her stepmother. It turned out that her stepmother had admitted to writing the letter, claiming it was for my daughter's own good, emotionally manipulating her into thinking I wasn't a good mother. This revelation angered my daughter, who threatened legal action, making her stepmother furious. In response, her stepmother labeled my daughter as ungrateful, emphasizing the financial support she had provided over the years, including paying for college and numerous gifts. She valued her gifts more than the mother-daughter relationship. My ex-husband, disturbed by this revelation, decided to cut all ties with his ex-wife. My daughter informed her stepmother that she wouldn't return the money, and that any further interference in their lives would result in legal action to claim the rest of the money. After this ordeal, we mutually apologized, deciding to put the dark chapter behind us and start fresh. My ex-husband and I, now divorced from his ex-wife, rekindled our friendship, finally achieving the happy family we had always wanted. The complexity of the situation involving my stepmother was indeed akin to a soap opera, and her cunning actions had caused a 12-year rift in our lives. It was clear that her manipulative behavior had taken a significant toll on my daughter and our family. Hey there, folks! If you're enjoying this video so far, give that like button a big virtual hug. But let's keep it friendly, no hidden notes here. Now let's dive into our second story. I'm Fimo, 27, and I grew up in a very conservative, or rather, misogynistic family. The only criterion for earning affection in my family was being male. They held archaic, old-fashioned beliefs, emphasizing the importance of preserving the bloodline and maintaining the purity of the family. My paternal grandfather, a staunch advocate of these ideas, never quite took a liking to me. Unfortunately, I had no siblings, but I did have a stepbrother named Joseph, who was 22. Joseph entered our family through my dad's second marriage to Sophia. Grandpa showered his love on Joseph solely because he was a boy. As a result, my own father started neglecting me, favoring the young child in need of more attention. The one fatherly figure left in my life was my caring grandmother, who had endured a challenging life with her overbearing husband. After my grandmother's passing, I felt disconnected from the rest of my family and became a mere spectator in their affairs. Things reached a breaking point when I graduated from high school and requested financial help for college. My dad outright refused, stating he needed to save up for Joseph. Ours was a wealthy family, and my dad had significant resources at his disposal. He could have easily funded both our educations. In desperation, I turned to my grandpa, asking if there was any support available for my college expenses. However, his response was disheartening. He stated that women neither worked nor inherited, so pursuing an education was a waste of time. He made it clear that he would bequeath his entire inheritance to Joseph, leaving nothing for me. At my lowest, I decided to cut ties and move out. I took out loans, worked various odd jobs, and managed to support myself while studying, maintaining good grades. I severed contact with my family and felt a tremendous sense of relief. Though the journey was tough, I had moments of doubt, and there were nights I questioned my capabilities. I persevered. I built a strong network of supportive friends who stood by me, and I secured a well-paying job immediately after college. I've been in the workforce for over 4 years now, experiencing substantial professional and financial growth. About a year ago, my father reached out to me, which came as a surprise, as I had no contact with anyone from my family since leaving for college. He expressed a desire to rebuild our relationship, but I remained skeptical. After some vague conversations, he finally revealed the true reason for contacting me. He needed money, knowing that I had been successful in my own right. He argued that, as family, it was my duty to assist him financially. I inquired about my father's financial situation and suggested he ask Grandpa for assistance, considering their considerable wealth. He revealed that the family business had experienced a downturn a few months after I left, and it never recovered. In response, I told him that life could be challenging, but I had managed to navigate it at the age of 18, starting with very little, and so could he. His response was tearful as he begged me to reconsider, but I chose to block him. That marked the end of my contact with them, and I've since lived a peaceful life. However, 2 days ago, I received a call from my stepmother, Sophia, asking me to come because my grandpa had passed away a week ago, and they wanted the entire family to be together. I expressed my condolences and apologized for not feeling like part of the family in a long time. I questioned the point of calling me a week after his death. She called me again yesterday, emphasizing the need to talk. Apparently, it had come to light that my grandfather was financially destitute, and the inheritance he had claimed was, in fact, my grandmother's. He had wrongly assumed it was his due, as his timid wife had never disclosed the truth to anyone. She had made a will that would provide for him after her passing, with a significant portion of her assets, including the $500,000 my grandpa had bragged about, was intended for me. My dad, Joseph, and Sophia were left with nothing, and this revelation came to light only after my grandpa's death. Now, they had lost everything, and the house was mine. Sophia suggested we stand together as a family during these challenging times, but I reminded her that I had faced tough times alone for most of my life, and no one had stood by me. I made it clear that I had no intention of helping them. I had already contacted a lawyer to understand the legal details of the situation. While I felt a sense of satisfaction that karma had come for them in the harshest manner, I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for them, as they had been completely blindsided and would have to start from scratch, given the loss of the family business. In response to your question, Joseph is not my dad's biological son, and my dad and Sophia do not have any biological children of their own. Grandpa had favored Joseph simply because he was male. It has been approximately 2 weeks since my family and I had any contact. I assumed that things had settled down and they had come to terms with their situation. However, starting yesterday, I began receiving hateful messages from my father's side of the family. Although we hadn't been in touch for years, these texts insinuated that I should do better, emphasizing the duty of daughters to look after their brothers and parents, leaving me puzzled about their intentions. So, I decided to reach out to a cousin I was still on good terms with to find out what was happening. He informed me that Joseph had contacted everyone and was spinning a melodramatic tale, claiming that I had swindled them and manipulated our grandma all my life to secure her assets. His story lacked any semblance of truth, but surprisingly, many family members sided with the golden boy and spread the messages widely. In response, I gathered screenshots of these messages and shared them on my Facebook page. I pointed out that since they were so quick to pass judgment, they should have stepped up and helped me when I was struggling and practically homeless. I launched an offensive against all of them and subsequently blocked their phone numbers. Generally, I steer clear of drama, but I couldn't tolerate being blamed for something that was not my fault. They won't receive a penny from grandma's inheritance, especially not after the stunt they pulled off. Although I didn't feel entirely vindicated, I discovered an unexpected reservoir of rage and resentment within me. The incident with my extended family seemed to have unleashed these bottled-up emotions, and now I can't seem to contain them. Upon consulting my lawyer and reviewing the will, I decided to evict my dad and his family from the house. Since my job allows remote work, it's more efficient for me to work from home, and this move will also help me save money. I served them with an eviction notice, providing them with a 2-month window to find another place. Their response to this bombshell was nothing short of fury, with a barrage of calls and messages flooding my inbox. I'm quite certain they're spreading slander on social media, but I don't have access, and I honestly don't care. I'm just looking forward to living in my family home, which is my sole attachment, along with fond memories of my grandmother. I loved her immensely for looking out for me. In response to your comments, I've decided to seek therapy, recognizing that lashing out in this manner is detrimental to my well-being. While I enjoy being petty with them, I understand that I have a lot of unresolved trauma from my life experiences, and it's better for me to process and address it rather than keep it suppressed. Thank you for your advice. I appreciate your support. You're right, I don't owe my family anything. I intend to enjoy my house, my money, and my life, as I truly believe I deserve it. Sucks to be your dad, right? LOL, I'm amused by how my grandma outsmarted her husband. Ours is indeed a family of intelligent women. That's a wrap for today's stories, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give that like button a big click right now. Also, if you have a fun and engaging story of your own that you'd like to share, you can email it to the address provided in the description. Remember to subscribe to the channel, as it really helps a lot. We'll see you in the next one.